Hi, William, did you have a question?
Nope.
Okay, so your hand's raised.
Oh, that's odd. Okay, I didn't know I did that. Thanks.
No problem.
Good evening, everyone. I think we'll give it just another minute or two while attendees join the webinar. We thank you for joining us tonight. We'll start in just a couple minutes. Thank you.
Vamos a dar unos pocos minutos de más para que más personas se unan para poder iniciar la reunión. Gracias.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Paula Forbes. I'm the Executive Director of the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. I would like to welcome you and thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules to attend this workshop. This evening, we will be asking for your input into our long-term strategic plan, as well as our budget for the coming year. This session is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and view it later. But before we go any further, I would like to invite our translator to provide the instructions for translation.
Good afternoon. I will first give you instructions in Spanish and then in English. Buenas tardes, los que se han unido y quieren utilizar el español, el canal del español. Si están utilizando una computadora portátil o de escritorio, favor de localizar el icono con figura de globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla cuando este aparezca en un minuto y luego pulsen en interpretación del lenguaje. En inglés dice Language Interpretation y seleccionen el idioma español. Si están conectándose desde su teléfono, iPad o dispositivo similar, busquen el menú con los tres puntitos en la esquina superior del lado derecho de su pantalla y pulsen Interpretación del lenguaje y luego el español. Esto se permite que se escuche la traducción al español con un 80% de volumen y el audio en inglés se escuchará al fondo con un 20% de volumen. Tienen la opción de apagar el audio en inglés pulsando Mute Audio Original ubicado en el mismo menú donde eligieron el idioma español. Gracias. Ahora la intérprete va a dar las mismas instrucciones en inglés antes de iniciar los canales. For those of you that are joining this meeting this evening in English, thank you very much for being here. In a few moments, the channel will be activated at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you're using a laptop or a desktop. Please click on the globe and then click on your language of preference, which would be English. If you're connecting from a phone, an iPad, or some other smart device, look for the three dots on the top right of your screen. Click on that. You will also then see the globe, and then you can choose your language of English. Thank you very much, and now we'll just wait for the channels to be activated. Vamos a esperar que se activen los canales.
Translation channel should now be active for anybody that wishes to join for translation services. They should be at the bottom of the screen as indicated in the image. I'm just give everyone a couple of seconds to go ahead and join in the interpretation channel.
Great, thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for attending tonight. I wanted to start off by providing an overview of the agenda and what to expect for this evening's meeting. This meeting will consist of two parts. The first portion will cover our long-term strategic plan, and the second part will cover our fiscal year 24-25 budget. During the strategic plan portion of the meeting, we will provide an overview of the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District, or SDAPCD, what we do and how we impact San Diego County. We'll then talk about the importance of developing a long-term strategic plan and ask for your input, which is so critical to its success. Next, during the budget portion of our meeting, we will cover how SDAPCD is funded and how we spend those funds. We'll also ask you to help us prioritize how future funding could be allocated. In terms of the format for this meeting, when we get to the group discussion and survey portions of the meeting, we encourage you to raise your hand to make a comment or post your comment in the chat if you prefer. The chat function will be enabled when we get to that part of the meeting. We'll now begin with the first portion of this meeting. In the next section, we'll be discussing what the district does and the importance of our work to promote public health and air quality in San Diego County. With that, I will turn it over to Melina Mesa, who's our program coordinator for government and public affairs. Melina?
Thank you, Paula. The simplest way to start this explanation is to simply define what is an air district. An air district is the local government agency that is responsible for regional air quality, planning, monitoring, and stationary sources and facility permitting. Most of the time, our attention gravitates to the areas that we can easily see. For example, everyone is familiar with water districts. We all receive a bill at the end of the month that reminds us that they exist. With an air district, we can't see the air, and the average resident doesn't receive a bill from us. So unless you're applying for a permit or in a community that is disproportionately impacted by air pollution, there isn't a constant reminder that we are here to serve San Diego County. But we are constantly working within our jurisdiction to ensure that the San Diego County region is meeting federal and state air quality standards. So why is air quality so important? Even though we can't see the air, the pollution we breathe can have adverse health effects. Air pollution can cause cancer, headaches, asthma, and other negative effects on your health. Due to its effects on public health, it requires oversight at all levels of government. There isn't a single agency that oversees air quality. It takes partnerships at different levels of government to ensure that all sources of pollution are regulated. SDAPCD is part of a coordinated three-tiered approach to regulating air pollution in accordance with the federal and state Clean Air Acts. At the federal level, the US EPA primarily regulates emissions from interstate traveling sources, such as planes, trains, and ships. The EPA also regulates large stationary sources like large power plants and factories for which EPA delegates permitting authority to the local air districts. At the state level, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, regulates emissions from in-state mobile sources like on-road and off-road sources. This is what we primarily see on a daily basis. The cars we drive and the large trucks we see delivering goods to stores, or maybe the items that we ordered online a few days ago. CARB also regulates certain area-wide sources such as consumer products and other individually small sources that are prevalent throughout the state. CARB also implements a statewide greenhouse gas reduction program. Now at the local level, your local air district, meaning SDAPCD, regulates emissions from stationary sources throughout the region, such as factories, power plants, gas stations, and some area-wide sources such as paints and coatings. We also have an agreement with CARB to enforce some of their mobile source rules. While there is one EPA and one CARB, there are 35 air districts in the state of California. All of them have similar authority and jurisdiction, but each district has different issues. For example, the San Joaquin Valley Air District has large amounts of agricultural land that contribute to a pollution of their air, that contribute to a portion of their air pollution. Here in San Diego County, we have one of the busiest land ports of entry at the US-Mexico border, military installations, and mixed land uses that are some of the contributors to air pollution locally. A little bit of our history. From 1995 to 2021, we were part of the San Diego County of San Diego and operated as a department of the county. Therefore, we're governed by the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, serving as the Air Pollution Control Board. However, we were the only large air district that wasn't acting as an independent government agency. In response to this, in 2019, then Assemblymember Todd Gloria introduced and passed California Assembly Bill 423. AB 423 meant that SDAPCD would become an independent agency that was governed by its own board. Our governing board includes representatives from different areas of San Diego County, as well as 3 public members. During the past few years, they have helped us shape our goals and objectives to meet air quality standards in the region, while promoting public health, equity, and transparency. Our vision is simple: clean air for all. We strive to accomplish this mission by maintaining programs to improve air quality to protect public health and the environment. In addition, we developed goals and objectives to meet our mission and vision. Our goals and objectives are air quality to ensure we meet federal and state air quality standards. Public health, we want everyone in San Diego County to breathe clean air and be free from any adverse effects that can be caused by air pollution. Environmental justice and equity, part of ensuring that everyone breathes clean air is placing a focus on those communities that are disproportionately impacted by air pollution. Public engagement and transparency, this means we want everyone to be informed about air quality, and this goes both ways. We want to hear about what is going on in your area. We want a continuous feedback loop. Lastly, operational excellence. We are here today to hear from you and how we can best allocate our resources and provide services that ensure clean air for all. And as I mentioned before, we regulate local stationary sources of air pollution in San Diego County. This slide lists our major divisions. All of these divisions work together to do the following: ensure commercial, industrial, transportation, and agricultural businesses are permitted to comply with air pollution control laws. Field staff inspects both permitted and non-permitted sources of air contaminants and investigates citizen complaints on air quality matters. For those sources we don't directly regulate, we incentivize cleaner than required technologies by offering grant funds. And we worked to help future generations have clean air through long-term regional plans to reduce unhealthy pollution levels and develop air quality rules. We also monitor and record air quality using a network of equipment stationed around the county and alert you to the conditions. Air samples are also tested in the field and labs. Finally, we focus additional resources in those communities most impacted by air pollution and are working to ensure environmental justice and equity are incorporated into everything that we do. And now I will toss it back to Paula to explain about why we are here today.
Thank you, Melina. Next, we're going to talk about why we are developing a long-term strategic plan. Our strategic plan will help define the direction SDAPCD will take in the next 3 to 5 years. It will include SDAPCD's vision and mission statements, goals, and the actions that we will take to achieve those goals. As a newly independent agency with a new governing board, we want to include everyone in shaping our first strategic plan. The strategic plan will help chart a new direction for SDAPCD that will help establish priorities for future actions and allocation of resources. SDAPCD is committed to meaningful engagement And we need community and stakeholder input throughout this process to move us towards a plan that best serves the San Diego County region. We will now move on to the activity portion of the meeting so that you can provide that input to us.
Activity time. Now that you have an overview of what we do, we want to hear from you. We will discuss 3 questions to gather your input and help us develop our strategic plan and set our priorities for the coming years. Now we are going to go ahead and move on. I'll go ahead and put on the first activity on the screen. And the first question is, in an ideal world, how do you think SDAPCD should look and feel 5 years from now? We encourage everyone to go ahead and raise their hands using the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. And I will go ahead and call on you. Additionally, if you are not comfortable with raising your hand, please go ahead and enter your comments in the chat. And it looks like we already have someone that would like to submit a comment. Larry, go ahead. Please unmute yourself and please let us know your thoughts.
Thank you. I'm a scientist, and I've learned just how hard it is for experts in any field to effectively communicate to the public. My comments regard your efforts to adhere to your mission statement and stated goals and to maintain public support for those efforts. I love your mission statement, improve air quality to protect public health and the environment. And in particular, I'm addressing 2 of your 5 goals. Your public health goal to promote healthy communities by reducing risks from air toxic emissions that can create adverse health effects, and public engagement and transparency. Support informed decision-making and stakeholder confidence by promoting meaningful public engagement and transparency. I visited your office in Scripps Ranch a couple of months ago to ask how many people in San Diego County die each year due to air pollution. While your staff was very polite and responsive, when I got the email back, the answer was effectively, "We don't know." I realize that exact numbers are impossible to find or compute, but an estimated range would be useful for the public to have access to. There are several reasons I think over the next 5 years you should concentrate on not only knowing these numbers yourself, but publicizing information on the number of deaths and healthcare emergencies caused by air pollution. Those reasons revolve around public buy-in and cooperation versus resistance and resentment. I would point to the top goal on your list, improve air quality in the region to attain all state and federal air quality standards. I would argue that for most members of the public, this is a rather abstract metric. And for many people on the political right who worry about government overreach, this may look like you interfering in people's lives without good reason. Even for people who do generally support your mission, it is hard to gauge just how much your efforts are promoting healthy communities. For example, how much healthier would we be if we attained all federal standards? Or how much healthier would I be living in Scripps Ranch versus Barrio Logan due to differences in PM 2.5 levels? For individual regulations, I would ask that you report the estimated annual reductions in death and morbidity due to the enactment of that regulation and compare it to the estimated cost of compliance. If you could address people regarding a proposed regulation and say, we estimate this will save the lives of 100 San Diegans per year and prevent 125 emergency room visits, that will be more likely to build public support than saying, we have to do this to meet EPA standards. Finally, based upon my research, it appears that around 2,200 San Diego County residents die each year due to just PM 2.5 and ozone, not even including the other toxics you regulate. This is based on some numbers from a report by the American Thoracic Society. I'd be happy to forward that report and my calculations for San Diego to you if you tell me who to send them to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry, for your comments. And later on during this presentation, we will be dropping a link to our website as well as an email address where any additional comments can be sent. Thank you. The next person on the chat that wishes to speak is Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan, with your comments.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to comment. Um, I would like to say that in 5 years, I'd like to see San Diego APCD leveraging the most cost-effective and meaningful measures to reduce air pollution in the county. I've been in the transportation industry for the last 15 years, and I've seen how money um, is distributed throughout the state. And I know that San Diego receives a disproportionately small amount of money in comparison to other areas like South Coast that are able to, create large funds like Carl Moyer. In lieu of the fact that San Diego is very spread out and hard to create large amounts of infrastructure for total zero emission vehicles and hydrogen infrastructure, I think that San Diego should focus on technology agnostic approaches. Electric where electric makes sense, hydrogen where hydrogen makes sense, and leveraging the use of clean natural gas engines to generate the largest reductions possible. The most bang for your buck clearly being natural gas because it's been around for over 30 years. It's scalable, and companies such as Cummins have the ability to provide heavy-duty equipment and heavy-duty engines to power that equipment on-road and off-road in the hard to decarbonize sectors of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for your comments, and it's great to hear we have very informed attendees tonight. Definitely great to hear that people are definitely paying attention to air quality. I also like to highlight a comment that we have in the chat, which says, since Cal OSHA rules depend upon air quality monitoring, I want to see more air quality monitors in different places throughout the county. Without these, the laws cannot be enforced. Thank you so much for your comment. And I apologize that you are suffer a lot from air pollution. Most every day from air pollution. Thank you for your comments in the chat. They are definitely being recorded. The next person that we have on has raised their hand is John. John, go ahead and unmute yourself and please let us know your comments.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having this meeting. This is very, very helpful. One of the things I'd like to see from the APCD is, some very clear defining goals and metrics with dates involved. And one of the ones that comes to mind for me is looking at like the annual air quality reports for San Diego. It's listed as residential fuel combustion, which is, wood burning. It's tied with construction and demolition as main sources of particulate matter in San Diego County. And the numbers you have in there, it's, 3.5 tons of PM into our air every day. And that's definitely something, I'd like to see the APCD address in their strategic plan. That is a stationary source. Particularly in San Diego County, people aren't burning wood for heat. It's not a survival thing. That's an entertainment thing. That's for recreation. And I do think that's something that needs to be addressed. San Diego County, we have really bad air from a ozone standpoint and from particulate matter standpoint. And, I know obviously as an air district, you don't have control over mobile. But, anything we can do to stop burning anything, is ideal to reduce air pollution and protect quality of life. But like I said, particularly particulate matter is, as you guys know, is horrible for people's health. And anything that you guys can do to reduce and educate people about the dangers of particulate matter and how to reduce it would be really, really helpful. And in the chat, someone mentioned about air monitoring, and that would be very helpful. I don't know if the district has the funds or can get grants to do some community science, right? To actually fund things like purple air sensors that people can install in different locations throughout the county, to really start getting a feel from a public standpoint and from your guys' standpoint about particulate matter concentrations in the county, back, also obviously in places like Barrio Logan, but also in the in other areas as well, unincorporated areas in the coast and that kind of stuff. So I'd like to see some more of that upcoming up. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much for your comments, John. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. We'll be wrapping this question up shortly. I would just like to touch base on another comment that I see on here that they would like us to take more of a lead on zero emission appliance standards for the region, like the Bay Area has been doing so. And I see somebody else's last remaining comments, which is, I feel the agency goals, one hand should be maintaining, meeting the mission and vision, and simultaneously helping various constituents to meet the requirements. And application should be submitted in a fixed time period. Thank you for your comments. Like I said, all of these comments that are in the chat are definitely being recorded, as well as the ones that are being spoken. So we are going to be moving on to the next question. However, we do encourage everyone to, if you still have any comments or have anything afterwards, like I said, we will be providing information where you can go and submit any comments afterwards. We thank you for everyone that provided input for the first activity. We will be moving on to activity 2. And for this next activity, the question we have on the screen is, could you please name a few things that SDAPCD does well and a few things that SDAPCD can perhaps do better? Like the previous question, if you wish to speak, just simply use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen. Or you can also go ahead and add your comments onto the chat. I actually did see a comment earlier. I believe that somebody has been really impressed with the spread of zero emission technologies such as heat pumps, electric, solar and battery storage. And you get to see that for the next 5 years. Okay, great. Does anyone have anything to add? Something that we are doing better, or can perhaps something we already do well, or how we can improve, please definitely let us know. This could be increased awareness or education material, or providing more educational material, maybe investigating more complaints, maybe investigating a few other items, or maybe I know some in the previous comments, there was a little bit about more oversight in specific areas. Please let us know how we can do better as an agency and if there's anything that we already do well. Ryan, I see your hand up. If you go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you again. I always like to start off with the good. I think APCD does an amazing job at reviewing where its resources can be spent. Many times that's in the port and that's off-road. Especially the lion's share of funding. I realize that APCD has in its purview an area where there's 400 buses in one location that they're trying to get whittled down through state funding and other avenues that are expensive and zero emission, and that's largely due to different over road regulatory California overarching things. But what you guys do really well is, number one, pay attention to the public, and number two, stretch your dollars and get the most meaningful reductions humanly possible. The only thing that I would like to see APCD really do, I guess, really stems from my first point, which is try to just leverage a more agnostic point of view. I realize that a lot of people are going away from natural gas powered vehicles, but the carbon intensity of a renewable natural gas powered vehicle is far greater. And I would love to see more of that renewable natural gas inexpensive vehicle in place of more finite resources, which are highly expensive zero emission vehicles.
Thank you for your comments. We really appreciate them. And then I also saw in the chat, somebody commented about also making educational materials more easily accessible to the public. We'll definitely take that into account. Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else have any other comments on this particular activity? I don't see any other raised hands. I think I don't see any other chats or raised hands. And I see more outreach to residents about the role they play with businesses to keep our clean air. And then another person in the chat wrote, the complaint process has been simplified and that has helped. That's great to hear. We appreciate your comment. And instills confidence in the eyes of residents. Great. Thank you so much for your comments.
Melina, I'll elevate one other item that showed up in the chat is what SDAPCD does well and not. You listen and are polite, but poor widespread air quality monitoring. Just wanted to bring that one up.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you. All right. And I also see that we can do a better job in processing applications in a timely manner. And guarantee a time period. Thank you so much for your comments. Like I said, all of your comments are definitely being recorded, and we appreciate everyone being here tonight to let us know what you think. This will definitely help us develop a long-term strategic plan. And with that, not seeing anything else coming through in the chat or anyone with their hand raised, we will go ahead and move on to the final activity in this segment of the presentation. For our third activity, if you could pick 3 priorities for SDAPCD to focus on in the next 2 to 5 years from what folks shared today, what would those be? Please let us know for the folks that have shared, or maybe you want to go ahead and you heard something that somebody else shared. Please let us know the top 3 priorities that you think that we should focus on. Like I said before, if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature, or please enter your comments in the chat. Perhaps one of your priorities from the previous items that were mentioned was more monitoring. Maybe that's a top priority, or educational materials. That would be a top 3 priorities. This will help us direct all of our resources. Like one of the previous commenters stated, we do have a budget, but we will do our best to meet as many of the requests as possible. But we definitely want a little bit of direction on what your priorities are. What is it that you think that we should focus on? And I'm looking at the chat. Someone wrote zero emission appliance standards. Thank you for your comment. And Ryan, I see that you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself and please let us know your top 3 comments, your top 2 priorities, sorry.
The 3 priorities I'd like to see, one of which would be, APCD opening up to work with industry to see what solutions are out there, actual costs versus advertised costs, and sharing how to, generally yield actual value in dollar to dollar savings per ton of emissions reduction. I'd like to see that be transparent for everybody that's around. So if somebody has to say, hey, we've got to go ahead and install $10 million of infrastructure to have a zero emission vehicle put in, whereas if we were to provide zero emission vehicle in an area like the port and have that actually only cost so many dollars a ton of emission reduction, maybe I think that would be the way to go as basically the number 1 priority, because you'd be sharing with everybody across California and all the other air quality management districts, because I don't see a lot of independent thought leadership from larger, more encumbered agencies. I see San Diego as one that is very nimble and small, yet in a very, very good area that could do a lot of good work with a lot of industry local. 2, just keep doing what you're doing with sharing information. And 3, I would say listen, and allow the voices of fishermen and other harbor craft to be heard as far as, their industries and how they're affected by proposed regulation, because I know a lot of them don't really feel like they're heard that well.
Thank you for your comments. And I also, before we go to the next person that has a raised hand, a couple of comments came in through the chat, and it's promoting zero emission technologies, promoting low income communities and community safety. And then we have another comment that says cutting wood smoke like Bay Area AQMD has, and building electrification, as well as widespread publicly accessible air monitoring for PM 2.5. And now we'll go ahead and go to the chat. Serena, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi there. Thank you. This is Serena Pelka from Climate Action Campaign. Thanks so much for hosting this evening and giving us an opportunity to provide feedback. Some of the priorities that we would love to see APCD incorporate into their vision for the next 5 years would first be to continue the expansion of your environmental justice work that has been really comprehensive and thoughtfully done so far. So would love to see that continue and definitely expand. Also expanding grants and incentive programs as much as possible for community members, and particularly focusing this support to the county's most impacted communities. And then as well as the indirect source rule that is being developed is especially important, and a zero emission appliance standard, as many folks have mentioned in the chat, in order to protect the health of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Serena. We really appreciate them. And then a couple more comments that came through the chat is widespread air pollution monitoring, getting ICE vehicles off the roads or discouraging the frivolous use, better information, additional the state approved money to help replacing residential gas and propane water heaters. Yeah, you've not been able to find a way to get such help beyond newer federal financial help. Then we also have on here reducing levels of pollution regardless of where it comes from. Thank you for the more effort into a concept called basic rain to reduce PM in general areas. Okay, great, thank you. And then other comments is expansion of hydrogen and renewable energy and biofuels. The vast majority of needs can be addressed through electrification. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your comments. And then if anybody else, like as a reminder, if anybody else would like to speak, please just go ahead and use the raise hand feature, which is located at the bottom of the screen. Or like I said, please go ahead and enter your comments in the chat. Everything is being recorded and we are taking into consideration all these items. We are here to hear from you and let us know how we should direct our resources. So once again, we appreciate everyone being here tonight and letting us know your thoughts. And we have another comment that came through the chat, which is ensuring that the current AB 617 communities and other SDS communities are in the top 75% in Calamari Screen are no longer ranking that high in 5 years. That is a very ambitious goal. We would definitely try to get it. Promoting ZEV technology and infrastructure throughout the region through targeted incentives, and continuing to foster relationships in other environmental justice communities within in San Diego County. Thank you so much for those comments. We really appreciate everyone giving us your thoughts tonight. And like I said, if you remember something else after the meeting ends, or later on you remember something, we will also be providing information on where you can go ahead and provide additional comments. Or maybe you have a question that can also go ahead and we'll also go ahead and be providing information for anyone that has any questions outside of the items that we were discussing today. And I'm not seeing any other items coming through the chat, nor am I seeing any other hands. So as of right now, we will go ahead and move forward and I will toss it back to Paula to discuss the next steps in the strategic plan as part of our approach to keep everyone informed.
Great, thank you, Melina, and thanks to all of you who provided feedback. As Melina mentioned, we are going to be taking all of these comments, whether they were provided verbally or in writing, and incorporating them into our strategic planning process. We have been doing a lot of outreach with community-based organizations and stakeholders and community residents across San Diego County, as well as with our own staff and board. And so I wanted to give you a couple of ideas for the next steps here. The draft strategic plan we anticipate will be released in May or June of this year. We will be going to our governing board to their March 14th meeting to get additional input from them. That will be a public meeting as well. And then we plan to present the final plan to our governing board this September. And so we're going to be using the email that you provided when you registered for this meeting to keep you informed of our progress in developing this strategic plan. I also invite you to provide any additional feedback you have at our website, which is listed on this slide and which has been added into the chat. The website will be open for input until February 16th. So again, like Melina said, if something else occurs to you, or if you have additional comments you would like to provide, please go there and enter any feedback that you have for us. It also does allow for you to make anonymous comments if you choose to comment that way. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Nicholas, our Chief of Support Services, to discuss our budget for the upcoming year. Stephanie?
Thank you, Paula. So again, my name is Stephanie Nicholas. I'm the Chief of the Support Services Division for Air Pollution Control District. And now that we've kind of talked about our long-term vision, we want to start looking at more short-term. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our current budget, which is fiscal year 23-24, including information on where money is spent, what revenue sources we have, and what we've accomplished with our funding so far this year. Then we want to hear from you on where you think we should focus our funding for the next budget cycle and beyond, and talk about next steps in the budget development process. So the district has an adopted operating budget of $38.9 million. The operating budget is strictly for the operations of the Air Pollution Control District and does not include budget amounts for special revenue expenditures for things like pass-through grants to pay for incentives. The operating budget plans for revenue and expenditures to run the main programs of the district, such as administrative services, monitoring and source testing, compliance, engineering, and mobile incentives and rule development. In order to provide the services that we are currently providing, many of which are mandated, this chart kind of demonstrates how we allocate our operating budget. So the largest chunk of the operating budget is just under $12 million, or 30% of the total, and it is for administrative services. So these are items that support all of the other programs, such as accounting, budget, fiscal, human resources, information technology, facilities, vehicles, our governing board, and our Office of Environmental Justice, to name a few. Then we have another $10 million, or 25% of the budget, which is for monitoring and source testing. Funding for these programs provides air quality measures to track the region's progress toward attaining and maintaining clean air standards, and to assist with developing targeted action to improve air quality issues, or air quality forecasts and reports, issues health advisories and alerts, and measures emissions from facilities to help ensure emissions compliance. Just over $7 million, or 19% of our operating budget, is for our compliance program. Funding for programs in compliance provide inspections of regulated facilities to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local laws and requirements. They also inspect asbestos programs, respond to complaints about emissions of air contaminants, and provide education and outreach to ensure compliance. 13% of our budget, or about $5 million, goes towards our engineering program. This program evaluates permit applications to limit emissions and provides compliance requirements to facilities. It quantifies emissions from permitted sources and implements mandated state programs to reduce toxic emissions, such as the air toxics hotspots program. And then lastly, another 13% or roughly $5 billion of the operating budget is for mobile incentives planning and rule development programs. These programs allocate grant funding to assist with voluntary replacement of higher polluting vehicles and equipment with new, low, or zero polluting versions. Other programs funded under this category include the development of rules and required long-range plans to meet state and federal air quality attainment standards and reduce stationary source emissions. And then also they conduct outreach and workshops for potential new or revised rules and plans to gather information and feedback from stakeholders. Then we also have, in addition to our operating budget, we're also responsible for another $77.1 million in special revenue expenditures. So this money is money that is provided to the district by way of the state or federal funding that is primarily used for incentives to encourage emission reductions in the region, environmental justice efforts, and invested in the most at-risk communities. APCD does not directly regulate mobile sources, meaning things that move like cars, trucks, boats, and trains. But having said that, we do allocate just under $36 million in pass-through grants to fund and provide region-wide incentives to residents, facilities, and businesses to incentivize them to replace polluting mobile sources, such as heavy-duty equipment, machinery, and vehicles with cleaner alternatives. Then we also have just under $29 million in the Community Air Protection Program, or AB 617, which is allocated to fund incentive implementation specifically for the most under-resourced communities. The types of projects it funds are similar in nature to the region-wide incentives that I just mentioned, but in this case, we use more community input to prioritize project requests for funding. This funding also partially funds the Office of Environmental Justice and our community level monitoring. The regional and community grant programs are voluntary, the two that I just mentioned, and we do not need to accept grant funding. However, if we don't pursue these grants, we could not continue to support the programs that are aimed at reducing emissions. Once we accept a grant, we are required to comply with the funding and spending requirements as outlined and agreed upon in the grant agreement. And then the last bucket of expenditures in this category is the Air Quality Improvement Trust, often referred to as DMV. And this is used for programs to reduce motor vehicle emissions, as well as funding for programs to meet mandated state and federal air quality requirements. It also offsets costs associated with implementation of the district's mobile source compliance program, which enforces mobile source regulations as part of the agreement with CARB. So now that we've discussed some of the expenses to implement clean air programs and projects, we're going to review now the revenue sources that we use to fund the operations. In the current year budget, so the fiscal year 23-24, we projected in our budget the collection of revenue in the amount of $13.2 million in fees and penalties. This is an ongoing funding source that includes fees collected to cover the direct and indirect costs of mandated programs such as compliance and engineering and the district source test program, as well as fines collected that are associated with non-compliant facilities. Fee-related revenues can only be used to cover the costs of the services provided. In the budget, we projected $12.6 million in ongoing DMV funding. This revenue is used to support the district's mobile source related programs, such as funding for incentive projects that directly reduce emissions from vehicles and equipment, as well as the district's robust mobile source enforcement program, the only one of its kind in the state of California. The vehicle registration funds are also used to support mandated but unfunded programs necessary to implement state and federal clean air requirements to help the region attain and maintain air quality standards. These funds are also used to bridge the gap by funding operational costs of mandated programs such as regional air quality monitoring, since the district does not receive enough state and federal assistance to implement these requirements. To a lessening extent, the DMV fund is used to offset some unfunded costs for the district's stationary source regulatory program, while we continue to work towards maximum cost recovery through fees for service, such as permitting, compliance, and source testing. So we also budgeted revenue in the amount of $9.5 million in grants, which we consider ongoing funding as well. These grants are used to help offset some of the district costs to implement various clean air programs and are not passed through as incentives like the grants that I talked about before. The revenue from these grants is typically not enough to cover the full cost of the program implementation, which means we must use other revenue sources such as DMV to cover the costs. And then lastly, we budget the use of just under $4 million in what we call fund balance. Fund balance is a one-time funding source, and it should be thought of like a savings account. So the funding is not intended to be used to fund ongoing programs, since the funding is finite, and then once depleted, it is gone and we don't have access to it anymore. Having said that, we are currently using some of this money to cover gaps in mandated programs where we don't currently have enough revenue sources. Over the last 2 years, the district has seen an increase in fee revenues as a result of our cost recovery efforts, which helps to reduce the need to use other funding sources to offset costs for stationary source permitting, inspections, and source testing. However, other revenue sources such as DMV funding and state and federal assistance grants remain relatively flat despite increases in program costs and requirements. As a result, most of these revenues are used to ensure that the district can continue to meet existing state and federal clean air mandates. So with that, we're going to go into our first question related to the budget and getting some feedback from you. I talked about our revenue sources, and unfortunately, we do not have a lot of areas where we have discretion on how we can spend the revenue we receive. The only bucket of money that we truly have discretion on in terms of our revenue is our fund balance, that savings account that I mentioned. And this, again, it's finite, and it should be used to fund things that are one-time projects, not ongoing costs. As I mentioned, we still are using some of that fund balance to cover gaps to make sure we can continue to provide the services that we're providing, many of which are legally mandated. But having said that, we have and plan to continue to decrease our reliance on fund balance for ongoing costs, So as we try to move towards eliminating the reliance on that in future years, so it can be used for its intended purposes, we want to hear from you. So we are going to turn on the chat, and if you'd like to share with us your ideas for how to prioritize our budgeting for fund balance, so remember it's kind of one-time type projects, or new revenue streams, should they become available, please give us your ideas. You can raise your hand, same as before, or put information in the chat. And some things just to kind of spark some thought here, some ideas about what a one-time project might look like. It could be something like expanding online services, investing in more online payments, or online application submittals, things like that. It could also be more funding for clean air incentive projects, such as electric vehicle charging infrastructure, where we help fund that one-time the infrastructure needs, or zero emission furnace and water heaters in homes and businesses. So again, if anyone has any idea, Corey, go ahead and unmute yourself and share your ideas.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you for this presentation. It's really eye-opening seeing how much you do with the very limited revenues that you receive. To be fair, I always thought you were funded as a part of San Diego County, like a department of them. So it's, like I said, again, really impressive all you've done with receiving, really limited support from the community. I guess that leads me to my comment, which would be, it seems that having more discretionary funds that you could use to achieve your goals would be good, since so many of the funds are limited in what they can be used for. And I think there could be some local support, like a local parcel tax that could be used or put on parcels that have emissions and impact air quality. And this would both generate funds for you to achieve your goals, as well as provide an economic incentive for building owners to look at and evaluate zero emission sources, so they wouldn't have to pay that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Corey. All right, it looks like a comment wondering how we compare to some of the other air districts in terms of revenues, expenses, administrative expenses, and grants. That's a great question. It's something that we are looking into. I think one of the challenges is We're not all created equal in terms of where we get our funding, although we get similar type funding. Some, just like the prior commenter Corey mentioned, some may get some funding from local agencies or surrounding jurisdictions, things like that. So it's tough to answer that because it's not an apples to apples comparison.
And Stephanie, if I may, hi everybody, my name is Mike Watt. I'm one of the deputy directors here. I think just in terms of comparison, those South Coast Air Quality Management District and Bay Area Quality Management District are two of the largest districts in the state, and so they receive significantly more revenue than we do, both from local sources as well as state and federal sources. So like Stephanie said, it is a little bit of kind of apples and oranges based on the different sizes, but certainly those two agencies are amongst the largest in the state and have significantly larger budgets than we do here in San Diego. But thank you very much for pointing that out and asking questions.
And I see another comment, more monitoring stations than we currently have. Any other thoughts about one-time projects? And again, similar to the first part of the presentation, you can always contact us to provide feedback if, we're kind of putting you on the spot with these questions. But if, later you think of something, we want to hear from you so that we can use this information to plan for future budgets. All right, with that, I'm not seeing any more hands or comments. We will move on. So just want to talk here a little bit about so far this year, what have we done, right? So we build a budget and I kind of talked about what our projections were, where we anticipated spending, but now I want to talk about where we've actually spent some money. The current budget strives to enhance the quality of life and achieve clean air for all. Some of the programs and projects we've invested funding in so far this year include continuing to incorporate environmental justice principles and practices into all that we do. We have developed a community emission reduction plan for the international border community. We've continued expansion of regional and community monitoring, including new sensors at the Tijuana River Valley. We have continued to work to ensure rules for stationary sources are updated and modified to meet our goals of improving air quality in the region to attain all state and federal air quality standards. We've assisted with funding to bring groundbreaking zero-emission projects to the region, including the nation's first electric tugboat and first all-electric dual mobile harbor cranes. And as part of our portside air quality improvement and relief or PAIR program, we've assisted with the distribution of over 500 air monitors and nearly 600 air purifiers in the portside communities. As part of our incentives, we've paid out nearly $2.3 million on 24 projects that reduce emissions from non-stationary sources. This is the equivalent of taking almost 3 million miles of heavy-duty truck traffic off the road. We've also executed contracts for another 60 projects totaling $7 million and have another $23 million in contracts currently in the works that we hope to execute before the end of the fiscal year, so before July. We have also developed an air quality complaint mapping tool to allow for transparency into our projected 600 annual complaints. We have continued to fund our after-hours complaint program and have response times of less than 24 hours, and that program is available 24/7. And that funding has also helped to conduct over 200 source tests to ensure our emission levels are compliant. And so with that, we'd like to hear from you again. We've got some ideas on priorities for one-time projects to consider based on the availability of fund balance, but we'd also like to get some of your thoughts about potential areas where you'd like to see the district grow and expand if new ongoing revenue sources can be secured. Some potential areas could include enhancing our regional planning and rural development programs, expanding the footprint of our environmental justice efforts to reach more of our under-resourced communities, or growing our outreach and education campaigns. So again, I encourage you to raise your hand if you'd like to speak or put a comment in the chat. Let's see, I see more incentives for zero emission technologies. And just, these types of things, the things that we're thinking about here are things that would need reliable ongoing revenue. So not one-time projects, and those incentives would be something like that. And we would really work hard to get broad local, state, and federal support to be able to secure resources to continue to fund the programs for the long term, not just for a one-time or short term. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, just to kind of build on a comment that I think we heard in the previous question about, trying to identify other resources. This is exactly the kind of thing we're thinking of. If we were able to secure additional resources, I think parcel tax was one of the examples that was mentioned. Something like that would be, a really good ongoing revenue source to help us, fund new programs or expand some of the existing programs we have. So I see it looks like we have a hand raised from Ryan. So go ahead, Ryan.
Have you guys considered working with the gas company to try to get stations which would remove diesels and incentivize natural gas equipment being utilized, which would be LCFS and RIN generating potentially?
A good idea. Something we can certainly include as part of what we want to explore going forward. But thanks for teeing that up, Ryan. Good thought.
Yeah, you need any help with something like that? I know all the players.
Great. We may be reaching out to you.
All right. Let's see, absolutely no incentives for any combustion energy sources. Thank you for that comment. All right. So I'm going to on here. It's another one.
I thought I saw another hand up, but maybe not. Oh, yep, looks like it.
Yep.
Nicholas.
Sorry about that. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just some of the other comments kind of got me thinking a little bit about has APCD ever considered I guess maybe purchasing and administering their own public charging station here in San Diego? I'm thinking about this transition that's coming with towards electric vehicles. I feel like a lot of the incentive funding is supporting private agencies or private companies in developing these stations. I wonder if APCD's ever considered administering their own charging sites for heavy duty trucks or passenger vehicles.
So Nick, just like make sure I understand, you're talking about like APCD sort of funded and operationalized charging infrastructure or charging facilities as opposed to providing resources for others to implement their own. That's something I don't know that that's something we have thought about, but it's something we can add to the mix for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Right.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate the comment.
And I see we have another comment in the chat. Like to see efforts aimed at sequestering organic matter. The ocean. Okay. A charging network could be very useful for medium and heavy duty fleets. All right. Well, thank you for those comments. We appreciate it. And same, like I said a couple slides ago, if you have any more, there's always opportunities to continue to share thoughts and ideas. But at this point, what I wanted to do is just talk about the reason that we're here is because we are in the midst of starting to develop our budget for the next fiscal year, which starts July 1 of this year. So just kind of want to talk about some of the next steps. So we'll be taking some of the feedback that we heard today and starting to put that into practice with our budget if possible. And then a recommended budget will be released for public review to our website. There's the fourth dot point that says budget information with the URL sdapcd.org/budget. It'll be released there on April 9th. And then on May 9th at 5 p.m., We will present the recommended budget to the governing board, and then on June 13th, budget deliberations by the governing board will take place. But in the meantime, on April 9th, you'll see that budget released on our website. And if you'd like to provide any additional feedback regarding the development of our budget, you can send us an email to the address shown on the screen there, apcdfiscal@sdapcd.org. And with that, I will turn it back over to Melina.
Looks like both of us clicked the slide. Thank you, Stephanie. I'd just like to remind everyone to please feel free to contact us. Our website is sdapcd.org, or follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you have any questions that were not addressed or are unrelated to the topics to discuss today, or anything else that you may have missed, you can always email us at airinfo@sdapcd.org, and I will also be dropping all this information in the chat as well. And I would also like to remind everyone, if you have any air quality related concerns related to odors, asbestos, dust, smoke, unpermitted operations, truck idling, or gasoline facilities, you can always report these items to us. They can be reported by calling us, sending us an email, or download our app on the Android Play Store or the Apple Store as well. And I will go ahead and hand off the presentation to Paula for concluding remarks. And also I will be adding the information regarding the complaints in the chat as well. And take it away, Paula. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
It had to happen once before the end of the meeting. Thank you, Melina. And again, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your input to these critical processes that we're in the process of developing. You can continue to provide input to us at the links that have been added to the chat. We encourage you to do that. Reach out to us with any additional questions that you may have as well. And with that, I will close the meeting and wish everyone a great and very safe evening. Thanks again.